and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see him, but I will give the invitation. Dear God, we ask that you be with us tonight while we deliberate for what is best for our city. Let us use our best judgment and be mindful of everyone here whose ideas are going to be expressed. In your name we pray. Amen. Very pleased to look down to my right and ask the clerk to call the roll.
All right, with pleasure, sir, with pleasure. Thank you. Councilwoman Gavarecki.
Present.
You could actually hear in here. I like it. Councilman Templin.
Present.
Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman Hayes is asked to be excused. Councilman DiGiulio.
Here.
Pro Tem Keenan.
Present.
Treasurer Armstrong.
Present.
And Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
I'll ask for a motion for the correction and approval of tonight's agenda, August 25th.
Motion.
By Councilman Templin, supported by Councilwoman Gavarecki. Are there any corrections or? The city attorney's asked that we remove the last item of business, the third and final reading of the ordinance. There are just some changes he wants to make to it.
You're on corrections there, Mayor? I want to take the claims off. I want to separate it.
Councilman DiGiulio has asked for item A1 to be separately treated, as we will. Any other additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes for August 11th.
Motion, Mayor.
Councilman DiGiulio has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll support it.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan has supported. Are there any questions or corrections to be done? I hear none. I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. There are no public hearings tonight, so we will go to the city administrator's operational report.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, the elevator inspection is scheduled for this Friday, August 28th. I'm told it will really happen this Friday.
5 o'clock.
Probably at 5 o'clock. With the elevators being repaired, Corrigan Movers have been contacted to finish moving all of the old boxes out of City Hall that have to go up on the second floor. That will occur on September 9th. The Allen Park Connect program, which we also know as C-Click Fix, is completed and available for download from the App Store on your phone or the link on the city website or the city's Facebook page. To date, we've received a number of items on that, and from what I understand, the DPW already hates it, so it must be working. The tender offer to purchase the outstanding 2009 A and B bonds officially launched on August 13th.
Yay.
Yay, yes. The tender offer expires on September 16th at 5 p.m. An official copy is in the city clerk's office, or you can see me and I'll show you the copy we have in our office and is available for review. As far as construction, Rosedale is now completed. This week, the contractors will begin working in the Ecorse Road area. Next week, contractors will be doing spot repairs on Reek Road, south of the creek, and then they're going to be moving to the north end of town to the Kennedy Sub and the Fairlane Business District. Park Street resurfacing has started, as everyone knows, and is on schedule. The MML will be back on August 24th to start staff interviews regarding the salary and job description update and analysis. Cameras are currently being installed here at City Hall, and all the paperwork for the prisoner transfer to Dearborn has been submitted, including all the insurance requirements. Police will begin moving the rest of their equipment over here in the next couple weeks with the hopes of having all operations moved here to this new City Hall shortly after the beginning of September. SMEA, who's our current IT contractor, is currently working to move over the remaining systems like the warning systems for, oops, the warning systems and the antennas for the radios, and they hope to have that done by the end of this week or early next week. All the new police vehicles have been outfitted and are now on the road. The emergency repairs to the community center roof will be done in about 3 to 4 weeks. I understand we're like third on the contractor's list to get done. The new asphalt path at Champaign Park is completed now. Fire and our contractor SMEA is working to restore communications at the fire station after a lightning strike took out their internet a couple weeks ago. Legal is working to get 2 nuisance homes taken down or repaired. One is on Astor and the other is on Philomene. The deed issues have finally been resolved with the school district for the park. I think that's over off of Regina. And now the wading pool can finally be pulled out of there. The DDA will sponsor an Oktoberfest on Allen Road between Southfield and Philomene on October 2nd from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. It will feature also a taste of Allen Park with local eateries participating. And I understand from the DDA there'll be more details on it coming soon. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I have one other communication. The Rotary at Millward Rotary Park, which is parking lots at the end of Pleasant Avenue, but from noon to 4 on Saturday, they are having a family afternoon, and there will be hot dogs served and other soft drinks and beverages and games for families and children to play. So we invite you all to come out and join us for one of the last afternoons of the summer. We'll move to consent agenda. The claims and accounts is asked to have been dealt
We have
with.
a motion to accept and file the.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes, motion to accept and file the updates and reports.
Excuse me.
Public comment.
Public comments.
Public comment.
I thought it was a short agenda. I was going to really
Hang on, we're
move.
all, Gary's right, we need a motion to accept and file his report, and then we go to public comments.
I make that motion.
Councilman Cisco has moved, supported by Councilman Templin. Is there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you, everyone, for slowing me down here. Public comments, I didn't bring either my gavel or the rules, but just remember to be polite in your comments. Make them be about matters of the city, not personal matters against anybody in the city or particularly any of our public officials. And remember that if you're ruled out of order by the chair, any of the council can ask that a vote to overrule the chair so the person continues speaking. If you continue speaking about somebody, that person will have an immediate time to rebut after your remarks are concluded. And if you've been ruled out of order, then you will be required to sit down or potentially leave the chambers. So with that, if you would come forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Russell Pillar from Arlington Avenue in Allen Park. I have just a brief few comments. The freeway and the interchanges in the city of Allen Park, which are cleaned or supposedly supposed to be cleaned by the county or the state, hasn't been done in years. And that being more or less the gateway to the city of Allen Park, I think either the county or the state should be contacted to make an attempt to clean at least the shoulders on the Southfield Freeway and the interchange there. I travel throughout the whole state here, and it seems that Wayne County is the filthiest state of all the counties in Michigan that I've been in, and I've been in almost all of them. And you go to other states or even over into Canada, you don't see the debris on the side of the roads that we see here. And some of that stuff, I know for a fact that's been there for years. It has not been cleaned in years. They have the equipment, maybe they don't have the personnel, but I think in a matter of years, they can find one day or a few hours to make an attempt to clean the freeway. Also, last time I was here, I made mention of one of my neighbors' his driveway, which was torn out a year and a half ago, and I think Mr. Cady just answered that, somebody's going to be in the Kennedy sub within the next month or so to rectify his problem. And lastly, through the chair to either the city treasurer or to the attorney, how many lawsuits are still pending against the city, and what is the cost over and above the attorney retainer to the taxpayers to date, if you know?
Through the chair, Mr. Pillar, I don't know that number.
Okay.
But, Bob, you want to help me with this? Is there maybe a time he could meet with you and you could give him a little background?
If you'd like to sit down, I gladly share the information I can with you. Many of the lawsuits against the city, as you know, are covered by the Michigan Municipal League, and all we basically pay is our stop loss, or I think it's $15,000 a claim. There's only a few claims that are not covered through our municipal insurance.
Would Miller Canfield be one of the ones that you cover through the Michigan Municipal League?
No, Miller Canfield's typically bond counsel, that my experience with them anyways.
Yeah, okay, because I know they're involved in at least one lawsuit, or maybe more, that's representing the city. All right, thank you very much.
Good evening, Brian Devolt, Pleasant, Allen Park. I want to continue my thoughts from last meeting. I ran out of time. I was to talk about the police and fire millage, just briefly. The police and fire millage, as you remember, at that time when it was being voted on, our city property values, home values was rising, and revenue was going to be rising thereafter. People were concerned about a 10-year, $50 million budget. They were concerned about whether or not, if you collected too much taxes, what would happen. And what was told to us, there'd be a rollback provision, and a rollback provision simply was if the general fund ending balance was greater than 10% of the expenses for the year, all the excess would be given back to the taxpayers. Fine, the vote went in, majority of the people voted to accept that. And then months later, the rules changed. To give you an idea of how substantial the rules changed, to use this year's fiscal numbers for the end of this fiscal year, the numbers that were available last month, it said that we had a $7 million surplus and that the expenses was $21 million. So if you went by the rules of which we voted for, that means 7 million minus 2 million, $5 million would have been returned to the taxpayers. Now with the change that nobody voted for, the $7 million, as the mayor alluded to last meeting, isn't going to be substantial enough to issue a rollback. What a difference. We were talking $2 million to $7 million might not be enough to trigger a rollback. Now last year, at pretty much this time, I pointed out that there was a change to the millage. And it wasn't, when the millage was going to go through, we heard at town hall meetings, we heard at city council meetings, special meetings, how important the rollback was. And yet when the change took place, it was done very quietly. I pointed it out to the people, and especially the people that promoted the millage here. Nobody said a word. Nobody was alarmed. No comments, no nothing. Nobody cared. The apathy was remarkable. I couldn't understand that. And then at the last meeting, one of the council people said, it doesn't matter if the millage was changed. 70% of people voted for the millage, therefore everything's good. Everything's lovely. There's no problem here whatsoever. And I'm taken aback. I don't care if 70% of the people voted for it. Anybody who voted for this millage, if you voted yes or if you voted no, It doesn't make a difference. Everyone should be outraged. A millage was passed and then changed. How are we supposed to believe what's going to happen in the future? Now we're being presented with another millage, another 10-year millage. Is there going to be a caveat at the bottom of it, a disclaimer that says, beware, if this passes, it's subject to change at any point in time without any voters' input? You changed a millage without anybody saying a word about it. No objections, no fight, no nothing. Is that fair to the citizens? Who do you represent? I can only believe a small minority of people within the city condone that type of change, behavior change. Is that my time, or is that?
No, that's,
Okay.
I'm having some problems here. I can't turn the volume off.
And to sit there and to say, move forward, as if that takes care of all the blemishes of the past, is absolutely ridiculous. We're talking current events here. We're not talking about something that's happened years ago. We're talking currently what is going on. And I believe that everybody who is running for office should have to answer the question, is it okay, is it permissible to change a millage after you vote for it? I think not. Please be more honest with the people. Thank you.
I think people should understand that Order 37, which the emergency manager left on September 24th of last year, and she said anything that she'd said in the past, this order supersedes it. She left and said, we will accumulate 15% contingent fund plus 1.2 of times our annual bond payments. So there was a change, and we have that order that we will be under so long as our tab is in place, and that we have to deal with. So I don't think the 10-year millage is in any way similar to that, but we do have to live by the emergency manager's rulings, and we have to live under the supervision of the Receivership Transition Administrative Board, or RTAB. So.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Lieutenant Egan, Allen Park Police. I'm your CERT coordinator for Allen Park Melvindale CERT. I just want to remind everybody, well, first of all, we're having our CERT fundraiser in Melvindale at the White Rhino, but if you haven't got your tickets, I'm sorry, it's sold out. So I'm proud to say that. The reason why I'm letting you know that is we still have tickets available for, it's a 2012 Thanksgiving Day ball signed by Calvin Johnson, but it's a 2012 game. One of our Allen Park residents won the football last year. It was appraised at a pretty good number. We're selling tickets for $10 a piece. Why would I want a football from 2012? Well, number one is Calvin Johnson's signature, but if you remember, that's the game where the coach accidentally threw down the challenge flag when he wasn't allowed to, and because of that, they didn't review the play, which made the Lions lose that game. I don't know if it's worth more or less for that, but anyways, I'll be here if anyone wants to buy tickets. If not, you can purchase them at our city clerk's office until probably Friday morning for $10 a piece. It's a way to help us kind of support the CERT team. They've handled a lot of parades, events, both street fairs, Melvindale's fireworks. Last year, we were very successful at the Knights of Columbus. This year, we wanted to do it at Melvindale to involve that city as well. So next year, we'll try and bring it back to Allen Park. But I wanted to thank everybody here and at home for their support. Thanks.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Good evening, Mayor. Al Wojcinski, Vine Avenue. Okay, where can I get a copy of the current police contract? To the chair.
It's not
To the lawyer.
completed yet.
Pardon me?
It's not completed yet.
So in other words, you can't release anything.
We can give them the TA.
You can have the TA agreement, which is what the council had when it approved its contract.
TA agreement meaning,
That's the agreement on the provisions that the two parties agreed to that would be changing from the contract that they were previously under.
in other words, it can still be changed.
No.
Okay,
It has to be drafted, and it has to be drafted into a contract. They didn't change every provision.
It's the changes from the previous contract that haven't been incorporated into the new contract yet.
okay. And To the chair, what are the results of the study on city employee pays, besides them being underpaid and overworked?
It's not completed. If you listen to my report, it's going to be completed. Actually, they're not completed. They're coming back in a couple of weeks to interview the employees. They've just passed out the literature about 2 weeks ago. They'll be coming back to interview the employees and finish the surveys. And I expect they have the results probably, Mark, what do you think? Early October at the best? Yeah.
I mean,
It's a lot of work.
it's a foregone conclusion just from the outside looking in that our employees are underpaid and overworked. So will this study recommend that they be brought to, let's say, the same rate as our surrounding communities?
The study at this point is just for council to look at, and also for administration to get a better handle on what the employees are doing, so we have updated descriptions if we have to replace anybody.
So there's no study really on financial
I mean,
compensation?
as far as a recommendation from administration on this, no. It'll be given to council, and it's for them to decide what to do with it.
Okay. We mentioned a budget surplus, or Mr. Debo mentioned a budget surplus. But to the chair, to Mr. Katie, how much do we owe of that so-called surplus? I mean, we have to have a balance of, claims and accounts. And that budget surplus can just go down to literally nothing if we pay everything, correct?
Well, I think there needs to be some clarification on this. I know Mr. Diebold talks about Order 21, but Order 37 was put in place.
Your microphone's not on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me repeat that. I know Mr. Diebold talks about Order 21, which establishes that a millage will be rolled back if a sufficient fund balance exists. But before Ms. Parker left, she put in place Order 37, which supersedes that and dictates what the city will have. This council and the administration has no choice on that. It will maintain those things. The other thing that needs to be realized, that this city right now is operating at probably 50% of the capacities that it needs to provide all the services that it used to the residents of this community. We're understaffed big time. And when we finish these studies and we get the staffing levels back to where we need, we're going to be spending a lot more money than we are currently. It's impossible not to accumulate money right now. We're not buying that much, and we're paying half the staff we used to pay, and as you mentioned, probably less than market. So yes, fund balance is going to accumulate. That was the plan by the state and the emergency manager, and that's the plan currently we have to follow.
Okay, so eventually we will be hiring more employees, and that
The
will...
budgets will need to be amended when the city or the RTAB approves these changes, and once that happens, those budgets will be amended, and fund balance will definitely have to come down.
Thank you, and have a good night. Did you want to say something to me? Okay.
My name is Nancy Simmons, and I live on Keppen in Allen Park. I just wanted to clarify with is there not going to be the reading of the ordinance thing tonight?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
So I can't say that I support it or whatever.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
I do. The other thing that I wanted to mention is you're going to be going over some kind of a resolution encouraging the repeal of the fireworks. I guess it's from the Michigan Fireworks Safety Act.
Right.
And I read some of the paperwork that was in the packet. I did really read it. And the letter that was written by the person who was concerned about those with PTSD and that kind of thing. And I just want to say that I'm one of those people. I don't have it severe, and it actually started after the flood last year. And so this was my first fireworks, and I had no clue that it would affect me the way that it did. But it was bad. And actually, in my neighborhood, there were fireworks going off for a week after the 4th of July, after 11 o'clock at night. And there was no way that I was going to go out and see if I could figure out where who it was that was shooting them off, but it was, well, it was horrible for me. I had many sleepless nights dealing with that. So I don't understand, this says that it's encouraging the repeal, but what you posted isn't really your resolution or our resolution. It's like is it a mock-up?
It's just a sample resolution.
Yeah, okay, all right. But I just want to say that I would support, restricting what it is that people fire off, because those things that went off, it sounded like bombs to me. It was, of course, it could be that I just, was affected by it more than other people. But the last thing that I wanted to mention is I downloaded the C-Click-Fix app, and I think it's great. But I was wondering, because there's something that I get like Detroit and Redford and all this other stuff. Is there something that we can do to localize that better?
Unfortunately, through the chair, Mayor, if I may, unfortunately, it's an open source application. And any city that's using that program, and you'll see Detroit, I think Taylor's on there, Lincoln Park may be on there. You'll see anything going on around in other communities. And it's designed that way so people can see the issues in other areas, that maybe it's a big pothole in Lincoln Park so they can avoid it or whatever. So it was actually designed that way. Now, you should see the borders of Allen Park when you look at it on the map. It should be outlined.
Right, yes, I can do that.
But we
Yeah.
really can't
Okay,
pull those other ones out of there, and some people like it that way, so
okay.
it's kind of 50-50.
I just was curious.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to mention about that is that one of the days I actually thought, well, I'm going to enter, there's two things that I want to enter in, and before I could even do it, the DPS or DBW or whichever group it is, they came and took care of the two problems, so I didn't have to do anything about it. So, thanks.
Robert Turner, Morris Avenue. At the last meeting, I spoke about donating money, if it went through the general fund or not. And, Bob, he said donate money. Actually, my money was donated to the Parks and Rec Commission. And that money did go in the general fund. And I was talking to the Park and Rec director today, and he mentioned about a 501(c)(3). I know there's 501(c)(3)s where people can deduct it off income tax. So I'm not sure what the process is to get a 501(c). It requires a little legwork, but a lot of people do it. When I ran for council last time, I walked into communities, and I donated $1 a mile for every mile I walked. I donated $1 a mile to the American Heart Association. I don't think I'll be walking 257 miles this time. But I am going to donate $1 for a mile I walk to the Parks and Rec Foundation. And I'd like to see some other candidates donate some money to where they choose to. I think it shows us trying to be good citizens, try to help the city out. Ray asked if I could use this 4 minutes tonight. Ray McGustin. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about that rollback. I know where Brian's going. I've been reviewing that, and I look at Order 37, a $7 million fund balance. If you apply that 37, we may be in a position to do a rollback considering 37. I'm not sure if Bob Kate has looked at that or not. And I just glanced at it, but what I'm saying, under even Rule 37, the system may be entitled to rollback. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening, Walt Jordanek, Bel Air Avenue, citizen of Allen Park. Couple quick things. Under resolutions, number 2, to allow staff to informally bid or explore options for the disposal of remaining equipment and fixtures at Old City Hall. Do the residents have that ability to bid on those things informally? Or is it only employees?
I was going to talk a little bit about that when it came up, but the thought was to look at maybe getting an auction company or looking at somebody to come in and dispose of those assets. I'm guessing whoever's picked, it will be a local auction, and anybody would be able to go in and bid on those items.
I think you misread that, Walt. It's not the employees that get to bid on it. It's,
Right.
it's letting the employees
We're
send
looking at
bids out
options to
companies
hire
that-
somebody
Oh,
to get rid
to
of those
allow
items.
staff?
Yes.
Okay.
So that staff is either Bob or Mark probably.
I don't
Okay.
want anything out of that.
Thank you,
building.
you're right, I did misread it.
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
The resolution to approve $37,850 to purchase 2 Ford F-150s for the building department, are those brand-new vehicles?
Yes.
Sounds like a good deal.
The bids on the mitten that we get from the state are always very good bids because the state contracts for a minimum amount of vehicles, and so they get a very hefty discount from the manufacturers, and then they pass that on to us, and we're allowed to purchase off that bid list.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
See no one else coming forward, so we will now move to the consent agenda, and we will take claims and accounts first as a separate item. Can I have a motion on that?
Motion,
Councilman DeGiulio has moved. Is there a second? Supported by Councilwoman Gavarecki. Questions?
Mayor, or maybe Mr. Clovier can answer it. I see here there's a 9,630, this is on administration, $9,636 for professional services as litigation Gatos for July 2015. Can you explain that to the folks at home or in the audience here? What that's about?
Well, I think it's pending litigation with a former employee of the city. And quite frankly, I'd rather not discuss too much about pending litigation in the public forum, but that is what that involves.
So it is still going on, so this 9,600 is not final?
No, sir. Hopefully, it'll be resolved soon, but my understanding is there is a settlement. However, when you work out a final order and agreement, there often is additional work necessary to do that. Hopefully, it will be resolved soon, but as of today, it's not resolved.
Okay, so
And the attorney who's handling it, I'm sure he'll work diligently to get this tied up as soon as possible.
so that $9,600 for July is above the $8,000 a month that we pay Pentioc, Covier, and Obelcheck?
That would not be a matter, litigation is not covered pursuant to our monthly retainer.
And will this go to the MML, or does this, do we have a limit to the liability for us? I know you mentioned before there was a $15,000 liability.
This case is not covered by our MML policy.
Thank you, Mr. Cady. I have no further questions there, Mayor.
I'd have-
Councilman Cisco.
Yeah, and, you know, we talk about the Lieutenant Gatos, and I think maybe a little background needs to be, without actually saying anything, a little background, that this is a lawsuit that happened, I believe, during the previous Burtka administration, that we've been settled with, that we have to fix now. And this has been ongoing for how many years, do we know?
It's 5.
5 years.
5 years.
2011 at least.
And so now it's finally at that point of maybe getting settled. But as we see and we talk about fund balance, and we talk about those things, these are the unforeseen things that happen when lawsuits happen and you have to settle them. And as it has just been said, that the Michigan Municipal League is, this is not something that they're going to cover fully. So, always have to remember that whatever seems as it seems is not as it seems. There's always something going on somewhere. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried, thank you. I'll ask for consent agenda for two items, the payroll report and curbside painting. So if I could have a motion on that?
Motion.
Support. Mayor Pro Tem Keenan has moved, supported by Councilman Cisco. Is there any questions or discussion? Hear none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Again, thank you very much. We're at resolutions to encourage the state legislature to repeal the Michigan Fireworks Safety Act of 2011. The clerk of the Village of Redford sent us a resolution they had used, and I thought we could use that, just substituting the city of Allen Park in the appropriate places to the resolution. So if I could have a resolution with that change, I would appreciate it.
Oh, you looking for a motion?
A motion, yes.
Yeah, motion.
Supported, Mayor.
Councilwoman Gawarecki, supported by Councilman DeGiulio. Is there any discussion of the matter? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried, thank you. Motion to allow staff to informally bid or explore options for the disposal of the remaining equipment and fixtures at the old city hall. I have
Motion.
a motion by Councilwoman Gawarecki, supported by Councilman Templin. Any discussion of that? Okay, hearing none. One thing I would want, though, there are certain things there that are of historical significance. I think there's a cannon out front that came from the old high school.
They're not there. They've been moved.
They've been moved already?
They've been moved to the historical
Okay.
museum.
There is one large city seal that's on the front of the building.
I just thought of something. We wanted to pull out the rest of the fire extinguishers and stuff that were in there too, because they're all fairly new, so.
We'll go through it all before, but
It just,
if I may, Mayor, just address this
Yes.
briefly. I don't think the object is to just suddenly go over there and do this. This is a process. Obviously, council wants maybe to walk through there and see if there's things that we need to keep or store somewhere. Also, I plan to ask any of the commissions that may be interested in items over there to go through and look at those things. And then lastly, once we get through and look at the firms that will do this stuff, we will bring back a recommendation to council for approval. This won't be done without your input. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote on this resolution, please. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is carried. Thank you. Third resolution, to approve $37,850 to purchase two Ford 150 pickup trucks for the building department.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Cisco, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan. Any discussion of that matter? I think.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman DeGiulio.
Where will you use these trucks now? What are they gonna be used for?
They're for the building department.
Okay, they're both F-150s?
Yes.
Just,
They'll be used by both inspectors and ordinance.
so they'll be used by ordinance, okay.
We approved, it said, we've approved two additional ordinance officers that are being hired, and they will be using those vehicles.
Maybe we can send them over here on Enterprise Drive there. There's 2 feet of grass growing. Maybe we can start with our own property and clean it up before we go looking at the citizens of Allen Park. Thank you. That's my last comment.
Any other comments by
there-
council?
Just while we're looking at vehicles, is there any way of replacing the ordinance vehicle that is through the police department, the one that Similarly in Vince used, or that old one? I think it's one of the oldest trucks in the fleet. It's rusting all out.
Through the
Everything.
chair, traditionally ordinance has driven their trucks until they literally don't start again. Those of you who ever remember Tommy Leland had that little truck. It literally died somewhere, and we had to go pick it up and take it to the scrapyard. So ordnance, generally, they drive them until they're dead. So,
The best hand-me-downs end up in ordinance, that's the way it works, so you probably will end up with something better than he has.
Any other comments or questions? Ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. The other business was deleted. Closed session, there is no business for that. Ah. Okay. The city administrator just said that he would like us to schedule a town hall meeting for September 15th here, I think it's 6 o'clock, to discuss the road millage, and we would need a motion from council for that purpose.
September 15th at what time?
That's Tuesday, September 15th at 6 o'clock.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Templin, supported by Councilwoman Gavarecki. Is there any discussion of the matter?
I just wonder if we want to think about making it a little later to possibly get more people that are having a tough time getting here after work. But, I mean, we want the best turnout that we can get. Anything we can do to get that. I may maybe make a friendly amendment that we make it 7 o'clock.
I'll support that.
And moved and supported that we change till 7 o'clock. Is the moving and the seconding parties in agreement with that?
That's good.
All right. 7 PM is the motion then. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
The motion is carried, and it will show that Councilman DiGiulio has voted no. So we're at a point where council comments. Are there any council comments to be made tonight?
I have just a couple, if I could, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan?
I'm not going to dispute anything about the rollback, but I just want to, I guess, kind of dovetail off some of the comments that were made, because the one thing I guess I take exception to is that people have come up here and made statements to us, and it's fallen on deaf ears, or that we don't care. Well, I can just tell you that for a guy that worked very hard, for a lot of you know that I rode my bike up and down almost every street in the city and talked to people about that millage. Ms. Parker had given me, all of us, and a lot of you folks, a paper that had the changes that were done, contract provisions. There was a lot of things in that paperwork that she had given us that I went out and shared with the residents. And a lot of the things that were in the paper that she gave me were false. And make no mistake about it, I'm not too happy about it. So I don't want anybody to think that that the fact that she made changes to the millage, or even the things that we went out and passed. Now, I'm not going to disagree with what was said last week either, that it was overwhelming, and I'm not sure that the rollback was a huge factor in people passing the millage. I think my estimation of talking to people here in the city is that police and fire are a huge priority to them, more so than a rollback in their taxes. So I'm not disputing either of the comments that were made last time, but I do think it's unfortunate, and I shared this with Ms. Parker at the time. We had a pretty heated discussion, because I take a lot of pride in my integrity. That was one of the reasons a few of us up here ran, and what I say to me means a lot to me. And when you give me information and I go out and share that information and it comes back that the information I shared was false, is very, very bothersome to me. So I want to kind of agree with some of the comments that were made earlier, but I do want to let you know that it's not falling on deaf ears. The orders are what they are. Mr. Turner talked about, that maybe there is, you're going to have to look back and see all of the bonds that we have and understand that she's making us keep 1.2. She did the same thing to the DDA. The DDA, I think she's making them keep, and Jennifer's here, I think it's 2 times what they are. So whatever bond they floated when they did Ecorse Road, or when they did Park Avenue, or when they did the Mazchek's parking lot, all those were bonds. And whatever bonds they floated, they're making them keep 2 times debt service the state is. So the DDA's hands are basically tied right now. They had to take their facade grant money. They were, I think, at one point giving out up to $20,000 matching grant. What, 50 is, Jen? Now they're at 5 because of the state locking their hands. So make no mistake, the state has done a lot to hinder some of the projects that are going on in the city. But more so, I just want to share with you too that, because unfortunately, and I'm not pointing at anybody here specifically, but a lot of the people that are complaining right now about this rollback are the ones that wanted the emergency manager, which I think is a little ironic. But I've talked to some of the police officers. I talked to one of the guys that's not in the officers. He sat down and figured out that the cuts that were made to this particular police officer totaled $26,000. So I've said it before, and I'm getting long-winded here, I'm gonna stop, but the emergency manager really balanced the budget, and any surplus that we have is on the backs of the police and fire. So be clear about that. It's not because our house values went up and, you know, it's been very flat. There's been a little bit of up, a little bit of down, but any money that we have is on the backs of the police and fire department. And I think there's gonna have to be some long-term changes for us to be able to keep people here in the city. And lastly, I just want to kind of just dovetail off of what was said earlier with some of these lawsuits. You know, it was discussed tonight. You know, that one of the lawsuits is not going to be covered, the bulk of it, by MML. That particular lawsuit, and I'm not going to get into any detail, but might take 10% of our surplus right there off the bat, one fell swoop on a lawsuit that we're going to lose right off the bat in the settlement. And so I just hope that the majority of you people up there know that everybody that sits up here that's elected is a citizen of the city of Allen Park, and we all pay taxes like you do. So don't think for a minute the things that bother you don't bother us. Thanks.
Any other comments by council tonight? I hear none.
Well, okay, I have one, Mayor. Okay.
Councilman DiGiulio.
Okay, to Mr. Diebold, you know, I do care if there was no rollback. You know, Mrs. Parker changed everything at the end, but she also left us Mrs. Folks, and we were able to get rid of her, but we can't go back and help the citizens get a rollback on their taxes, which they deserve. I'd also like to have a list of the people that received reductions in property taxes here in the city this year. We have people that received property tax decreases, and I want to know why they received them. I want to know who they are, the addresses of the homes, and was it for outside maintenance, inside maintenance? What was it? I mean, here we got people that are pushing for tax increases, and we're getting reductions in our home taxes. And of course, I'm not for the town hall meeting. I'm totally against the street millage. I think we've paid enough. I think it's time that our politicians keep their hands in their own pockets. They don't stick them in yours. You know, I'm tired of finding the politician's hand in my pocket every time I dig in there for a dime. With that, I'm going to say good night.
Other council comments? Councilman Cisco.
Well, I've got a couple of comments here, one not so good, one good. So I just want everybody here and at home that watches these things, that no matter who comes to the podium, we do listen, and we do take some of these things very seriously. But I also want to mention, when it comes to finances, when it comes to knowing what goes on to the city, when we're in this room, as far as I'm concerned, there's one expert, and that's our city administrator, who's our finance man. He knows it front and back. So when Mr. Cady speaks, we should all listen, because that is his job, and I believe him 100%. So other people that come to the podium, maybe they should list their qualifications as far as municipal finance goes. But this all goes back to of what I said 2 weeks ago. And part of that is when that police and fire millage got passed, the people that were against it started a campaign that continues to this day to discredit everything about that millage. And the fact is, that millage passed so we could keep our police and fire department at the levels that we need to. And they're actually not at the levels that we need. So, but this has been a continuous attack, and now that there is a road millage going to be on the November ballot, now the attacks come. Can't trust government, can't trust what anybody says, can't trust anything that's written. But the fact is, all you have to do is go out on the streets of Allen Park for this road millage right now, and you, the citizens, decide how good a shape our roads are in as they're crumbling and falling apart. And as right now, Mr. Katie, how much money did we spend this time on roads? Not for the major roads, but for the regular roads.
In 14 and 15, we spent about $1 million in restoration.
$1 million. And our millage is, we're asking for, was it about 1.4?
The millage that we're asking for is
Right.
1.9015.
No, well, no, in actual money.
Actual, that we
The millage that's coming up, that we're gonna vote on, it translates
$1.4 million.
1.4 million. So we add that to the 1 million, we have 2.4, and we've taken out
Another 500.
another 500,000 out of the general fund. So we have approximately $3 million to spend on, and I'm gonna show this sheet again. This is, in red, all the roads listed in poor condition. Yellow is fair, green is good. So, as we see these things, we have also this book done by Buscelli. Lists every street in Allen Park in its condition. This is not something that's made up. This is not something that's a fairy tale. When you go down some of these streets, are you tired of having your cars bounce around and you bounce around in them and see the deterioration that exists? And after this winter, it's going to be worse. You get to decide. This council voted to let the people decide if they want to do some extra money. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's not going to take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You know, according to our engineering experts, Buscelli, they said 30 years. It's a big task. So you're either a responsible citizen or responsible as a council to let the people decide what you want to do. What kind of city do you want? Do you want a city that has a good fire department, a good police department, good services? What is it that you want? You'll get to decide that at the polls. Now, the one good thing I wanted to talk about was our community. Our community is all interrelated. Everything kind of plays off everything else. So when we had a downturn in our finances, some of it manufactured by the previous administration, and it affects everything. It affects Parks and Rec, it affected the police department, fire department, it affected everything. But there's still organizations out there that make Allen Park a really great place to come to, and one of them is APAC, Allen Park Bulldogs, our rec department that's doing a pretty good job. And just recently, you know, we had a championship game with APAC, 19 and under boys. They were the Blue Thundercats. And they played in the Detroit Tigers hometown tournament at Wayne State. They lost in the last inning 5-2, and they lost against, if you know about baseball and how this is, you know, APAC's kind of like a local club, basically. And they played against Division I and Division II college-bound students, and they lost 5-2. So they've had a great season. There's 624 kids in APAC. 624. That's boys and girls. And they start at age 5 and go to 19. they turned away 45 kids because the league was filled. So they actually had room for more. 95% of those kids live in Allen Park. They do take some from outside of Allen Park, but 95% live in Allen Park. That's a great thing. And if you want to live here in Allen Park, what do you want to do? You want to have your kids involved in sports. You want to have them go to good schools. We have a number of good schools, not just Allen Park High School, Cabrini, Intercity Baptist. You know, we've got Melvindale, Northern Allen Park where kids go, and we've got Southgate. So, but we're all intermingled. Everything, we all play off each other. You want home values to rise? This is one of the reasons why people would come here. Good schools. Good organizations such as APAC. I mean, think about this, 624 kids. And part of that had to do with, you know, the superintendent, Dr. Sturrock, allowed flyers to go for APAC so they could have a sign up. Our director, Pat Hawkins, allowed to use of the community center for registration. So we're all connected. Everybody helps each other. That's what we need to do. And that includes everything. Everything that we talk about. So let's start being a little positive about things and get things moving in the right direction, which I think we're going. And I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I had a little bit to say. So I thank everybody for indulging. Thank you.
Any other council comments? I just would like to try and give a short explanation about Order 21 and Order 37 of the emergency manager. There were 18 months, I think, between Order 21 and 37. And one of the things that occurred just before Order 37 was put in place by the emergency manager was she began talks with the state to handle the refinancing of the 104-acre 2-series bonds of approximately, I think outstanding now is maybe $27 million. At that same time, this council had to make a settlement with the Securities Exchange Commission because on those earlier bonds issued, there were some discrepancies as to the facts that were in the bond indenture and in the materials used to sell those bonds. The state was very determined that Allen Park's financial position would look as strong as it could be. And it is very strong. But the thing that they insisted on was the accumulation of revenue to make certain that we could withstand unforeseen events that would occur, that seem to occur every year somewhere in the budget. We have to come up with some money that we didn't budget for. But also to make certain that the payment on all the bonds that were outstanding were clearly provided for. I don't think there's anybody that sits up here that has any belief that the state's going to waver on that. We just issued last week the tender. Until we know how many people have agreed to waive the
Sell their bonds back.
well, there's a protection that if they do not voluntary tender, we cannot call their bonds in 2019, but we will issue new bonds with the state in which we will guarantee with our revenue sharing and protected fund sources the payment on the new bonds that will pay off all the old bonds, those tendered and also those that we will call in 2019. Because the bonds that are out there now, we're paying between 6.75% and 7.25%. The new bonds that we expect to issue sometime toward the end of September will probably be in the 4% range. So you can do the math on, you say roughly a 300 basis point difference on $25 million. The interest over a 25-year period will work out to be about $375,000. I know it starts at $750, but you have level payments. So as you make your principal payments, your interest in the next year goes down, the more principal is paid. So over 25 years, you'd get a level interest payment of about $370. That's a tremendous amount of savings to this city's budget over a very long period of time. And so I think one way to look at what she did was she did have to turn around. I think partially she was forced by the state, partially the change in circumstances in the issuance of the bonds dictated that we use extreme caution. Because remember, Allen Park, before we issued those $30 million in bonds, the original amount that we used to buy the 104-acre site here, we had an A bond rating. Currently, we're at D. With the state's help on the new bonds refinancing, we will be back probably at A. Doesn't sound like it makes a difference, but if you've been watching the stock market this week and the bond market's fluctuating, it does make a difference. So let's be cautious when we talk about how we deal with what appears to be some surplus funds at the moment. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan,
Support.
supported by Councilwoman Gavarecki. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. We're adjourned at 7:01.
This is the shortest meeting that I've